Hello, Aletheia. This is your recap video for this past week's sermon. Hopefully everything went well as I preached, and we got to learn a lot from Acts 4, 1 through 22. So the main idea of the sermon was that we are called to be witnesses, but not just witnesses, but witnesses that boldly proclaim the gospel. And the important thing is that it's at all times to all people. And this happens through any sort of persecution or anything that might happen. And we learn a lot about what this looks like. So we learn the why persecution, the how we deal through persecution, and then what is our response in light of persecution and how we boldly proclaim the gospel. We see the setting first from Acts 3, after the lame man is healed, and consequently it leads to an opportunity for Peter and John to share the gospel. They share it fully and truthfully without leaving anything out. And in response, 5,000 people, 5,000 men come to know the Lord and receive Jesus. Whereas there are others that refuse and reject what they're doing and arrest Peter and John. Then we kind of took a step back and saw what happened here in these responses, and took a step back to see why persecution. What is the point of persecution? What's going on? And giving us a better perspective on it. So we looked in other places in the New Testament to really learn about this, and in the Old Testament to really see that, number one, persecution is expected. As followers of Jesus, because of being followers of Jesus, but to realize that in him, even though we're persecuted because of him, he has gone through it first, and through him we have peace and we have hope. Because the reality is, in his life, burial, death, burial, and resurrection, he's overcome the world and overcome death itself. And we have freedom and hope in that. And knowing he's been through it before we have, so that as we do it, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. We see that it's expected, and number one, that it's not a bad thing, but actually a good thing. It allows us to grow and learn. And in James, we see this, and that it helps us learn to trust in God and learn to lean on him more. Building our endurance, our steadfastness, so that through trials and other things, we start to see that we rely on him more and have that foundation in him to really give us that strength and endurance through other trials and through life as we go, because it's not always easy. And then we learn how we can face persecution. How can we face persecution well? This one is when we really dive into Acts 4 and see how do Peter and John deal with being arrested and essentially told, hey, stop preaching. This is not good. We don't want to hear this anymore, so stop. We look through what they did, and we learn that Peter and John are submissive. They don't fight. They don't push back. They honestly answer truthfully and really work through dealing with these leaders in a respectful and honorable way, which really allows them to speak and be a light in these areas. So we see they're submissive, and we see they're empowered by the Holy Spirit, not in our own strength, but through the Holy Spirit who truly is doing the work, and we trust in him and look to him for that help. As we lean more into him, we see him work more and more and more, and we recognize it happening in and through our lives. Then we see that we are to boldly proclaim the gospel, as opposed to clamming up out of fear or not doing it because we're afraid either of being rejected or opposed in different ways. So the last thing we see is that we're to be obedient to God no matter the cost, and see that he's in control and he's ultimately for us and with us, and we need to obey him before men, because we can only have one person that we're truly pleasing and following, and that is God himself. All of this leading to this main idea that we're sharing of boldly proclaiming the gospel at all times to all people, which lines up with one of the marks of being a growing disciple of Christ, that we are supposed to share God's love as a witness to the world. So be encouraged to boldly proclaim the gospel at all times to all people, knowing you have the Holy Spirit to empower you and embolden you because of the great thing that Jesus Christ has done on the cross, that he loved you so much that he would be willing to sacrifice his life. This gives us so much worth and power to see his love and his example that he set before us. I hope you have a good week, church. Bye.